Hello all, I was finally able to model the overall survival data. For this model, I was actually able to use actual DCVaX data, which has been published in the translational medicine on the blinded entire group. So this was the entire group, it was still blinded. But it did give us very good overall survival data points, which I incorporated in this model. This makes this model much more powerful because I'm actually using now real DCVaX data for the model. Some of my prior modeling, we had very limited data points. We look at the curve that was published. This is a manifestation of the curve that was published, and one can see, especially if you zoom in, you can make out where the events were. Each uptick represents a censored patient. I counted 66 censored patients. Now, it's important to keep in mind this represented 2017, mid-2017 data. And the overall group had a median survival of just about 23 months. And then painstakingly was able to put this data into a tabular format here. And this is what took so long, measuring out where the events occurred and where the censors occurred. The article from the translational medicine also gave additional info regarding the tail, some things that I was able to incorporate into my survival model. So then I went ahead using the methods that I've already reviewed in my other videos and inputted this into the statistical program and obtained this Kaplan-Meier curve, which is a manifestation of what was published in the translational medicine with a median survival of 23 months. It also had a 3-year survival of about 28% or a 30%. Yeah, about 3 years at 28%. The other thing, they did give several parameters for the tail. So we really have a lot of data up to 36 months here based on the translational data. So you can see all the data points and the enormous number of sensors and everything that contribute to this part of the curve. Really, we have very limited data about what's happening out here in the tail. But the article did give us 2 parameters that we can comply with. It showed that for patients who had surgery greater than 30 months prior to data collection, the Kaplan-Meier median overall survival was 46.5 months. So at 30 months, you come up here halfway, and it comes right at about 50 or 46 months. So that one we tried to comply with. And then the more important one showed that after patients had lived greater than 36 months, they had a Kaplan-Meier estimate of 88.2 months, which is really enormous for glioblastoma multiforme to have that long of a survival. So in this one, you come up here in 88.2, which is right here. You come back here to the 36 month, and you can see it's about halfway, which would be then the median survival. So we tried to comply in this section, but we have very limited data that is producing this section because we just have very limited data points. We have those 2 data points, which we did try to comply with. Trying to show you this, and then so I tried to incorporate. So here's the 88, come over here to 36, and it is about at the halfway point there. So this tail, the data that I really had a lot of data, and I used a ton of data, as you can see by all the marks, was up to 30 months. This, I only had 2 data points, which were listed here in the article, these 2 little data points. So This tail, we have much less information regarding the outcome of these patients. The other thing to keep in mind is this is old data. We have nearly 3 more years of follow-up here. So all of these censored patients would not be on this curve here. All of these little upticks would have either evented out or they would have lived and been a censor, way out, several years out from here. So that's the other thing. So now when I went ahead and put this model together, I then took out the IMUC control population. So I used the IMUC control, expanded it to the N of 99, and then whenever there was an event that I needed for the IMUC, I classified that as control. And by doing that, you were able to separate out the control group from the experimental group. So this was what was given in the translational medicine, and what we're trying to find out now is what happened with the control group and what happened with the experimental group. So I went ahead and did that using my methods, and this is what the data came out. This is the control, and this is the experimental arm. I also put several long-term sensors here on the control arm on the patients that did not event. And the reason I did that is because I wanted to try to make an attempt at quantifying or at least giving some credence to the crossover. So these patients, a large number of them that evented did cross over and receive the DCVaX. So I did give some of the patients that had not evented and had not had a sensor taken out, I did give them a long-term follow-up just so that we kind of took into account perhaps some crossover effect. The key part of this, however, is right here, and one can see the median survivals, 19.7 in the control, 26.1 on the experimental. This was highly statistically significant. And I just want to remind you all that when we first started these little series, we looked at the STOOP data. And for overall survival right here, and then up to here, the STOOP data had a difference in overall survival of 12.1 to 14.6. That is a difference of 2.5 months. And that became instantly the standard of care. We're looking down here at a much greater survival benefit in terms of median survival. And it may even be greater out here in the tail. So the p-value was 0.04 between these curves, a significant p-value. So this is my best model in terms of being able to determine where we're likely going to be at with overall survival. The basic assumptions of this model are that the control arm of the DCVaX will have a survival similar to what was shown in the IMUC data. I made attempts to balance this because the crossover effect is unknown, how much of an effect that will have. So I did give the control arm long-term sensors here to try to give some credence to perhaps a crossover effect. So basically, this is what I think may be happening, and it's my best hypothesis that the overall survival curves will carry a statistically significant benefit, favoring the experimental arm. Thank you.